Welcome to today's podcast interview. I brought on Jerry Scarlato. Jerry, welcome.
Heather, great to see you. Great to do a little catch up here before the show and excited to see what we can bring to the audience.
I have to share this because this is a first timer. It's a very small world. People may not know, but I'm originally from Colorado, spent middle school through college in Northern Kentucky, and Jerry lives in freaking Northern Kentucky. We know similar people. It's a small world.
No doubt. When you started talking, when you say Northern Kentucky, when you said it, right then I'm like, there's no way because
Yeah.
no one knows what Northern Kentucky is unless you've lived in Northern Kentucky. That's why Cincinnati is the easiest thing to say, right? I said I was from Cincinnati. You're like, oh, Cincinnati. Oh, I lived in Northern Kentucky. And then we went down the rabbit hole.
Yes. All right. So for those that are new to you, where do you live and what do you do?
Well, I'm in the Cincinnati area. No, I live in Northern Kentucky, which is on the border of Cincinnati. I actually owned and operated a fitness studio for 10 years, which we'll get into in a little bit. I closed that last year and I am now migrating myself online. I have a podcast called Good Wolf Project and am tinkering with coaching and will eventually start doing that full bore, but focusing mostly on the podcast and kind of growing that and growing social media following and all that, which, as you well know, is very tedious and takes a very long time.
A very long time. Yeah. You know what I realized? Entrepreneurship, especially if you're in the game, you have to realize this is like for a long game. It is not short-lived. And I think that was something I really had to wrap my head around is, it is not instant gratification. There isn't guaranteed income and results quickly. So those overnight successes that took years, and it's so easy to get stuck in the comparison trap, which will derail you. And so I've it's taken me time and mental discipline, but focus on where I'm at and like what can I do today. So I'd love to hear from you, especially fitness coach. I feel like a lot of people get into personal development and mindset in the gym, which I think is a fine place to start. But we could talk about what are sustainable results and why is mindset so relevant?
Well, I can tell you again from being in the gym for 10 years, well, from owning a facility for 10 years, I myself have been training for 25 plus years. I've trained people for over 15 years. So I've worked with thousands of people all in person, mostly in person, I'll say 99%. So you start to see habits, you start to see things that keep people from making progress. And the main thing, it's not because people don't know what to eat. It's not because people don't know how to exercise. It's not because people don't know whatever. It's not an education issue. It is an application issue. And the thing that stands between education and application is your mind. It is your brain. It is what you believe to be possible, both with the world around you and with yourself. That's what stands between the two. And unless you start to change that, you change what happens up here, your brain, your mind,
Yeah.
then what happens outside of you likely won't change. And I saw that over and over and over again.
Yeah. But especially like if we think about the fitness thing and New Year's resolutioners, 92% of people fail because they don't have systems, they don't have accountability, they don't have vision. There's so many reasons behind that. But I believe, you may not know, I've coined myself a personal trainer for your mind. And I truly believe any good personal trainer, yes, teaches you nutrition and weights. But if you don't deal with the mental and emotional aspects, you can't create that sustainable lifestyle identity shifts.
You have to be, well, on any journey, you have to become a different person, no matter really what you're trying to accomplish. In my mind, whether you're trying to get more fit, whether you're trying to get more money, whether you're trying to get better relationships, and all of those things, you have to become a different person. As the saying goes, you have to kill your previous self. Not literally, by the way, but you have to kill your previous self. So that change happens whenever you start to change what happens upstairs. The hard thing is we see our mind and our thoughts and our feelings and all of those things as us, as who we are.
Mm.
And because we see them as who we are, it's hard to explain to somebody how that's what's keeping them from moving forward, because they're like, well, that's who I am. How do I change that? But if you tell somebody if you exercise, it'll change your body, they understand that because they can physically see a change. But when you explain if you change these things that are swirling in your mind, that'll change what happens around you, it's hard to grasp that. It's an abstract idea, right?
Yeah.
So that change is what keeps people from making progress. But unless you start to grasp that and understand it and slowly start to make those shifts, you're going to be stuck 9 times out of 10.
Okay, so what are those internal things that you're talking about?
Whew. Thoughts and feelings and beliefs. So your beliefs, the challenging part is your beliefs are formed from the moment you are born all the way through your life. And unless you start to become aware of them, and unless you start to become conscious of them, then they will dictate your life. There's a wonderful quote from Carl Jung that goes, unless you make the unconscious conscious, it will dictate your life and you will call it fate. And
Yeah.
beliefs are one of those things that unless you know that that's what's happening, that that's what's causing you to either stick with training or stick with nutrition or continue down the path of more wealth or saving more money, unless you become aware that your beliefs are what's keeping you from doing that, then you'll just look at it and go, well, look at what life's done to me.
Yeah. The victim mentality. Okay, so now you're speaking my language. You're getting into, for those that especially tune into podcasts would know, I talk about this stuff all the time. But if you think of your mind as a garden, what you are talking about, it's actually supposedly like in our third trimester of pregnancy up until age 7 is when we're most formidable. So that's when our subconscious mind is, think of it like a blank slate. And we take in everybody around us, mom, dad, culture, community. We take in their beliefs as fact because your analytical, logical mind is not formed yet. And so now I love Dr. Bruce Lipton because people are like, how am I supposed to know? It's in my subconscious mind because it's 95% running the show. So Dr. Bruce Lipton explains that your life is a printout of your subconscious programming. So when you have a conscious desire, 5% of the picture to get healthy, to make more money, to be in a loving relationship, but you're struggling and everything and trying to make something happen, it's because that 5% desire is going against 95% of your beliefs or programming. So, for example, I think money is the easiest tangible to talk about, but I love to hear your perspective from fitness and people's patterns. But money, think about it. If you come from a family living paycheck to paycheck, you're going to learn lack, scarcity, limitation, money mindset. So the only way to create wealth and an abundant mindset is to become aware of, I call them weeds, weeds in your mental garden. You got to pull the weeds, plant new seeds. This is where the self-development comes into play. So I'd love to hear your perspective since you worked with thousands of clients and people wanting to lose weight and get healthy is predominant out there, right? So what are the patterns? What are people's beliefs in self-image when it comes to self-sabotage and overeating?
So not only do they form when you're younger, and I love that, and that is so true, and I've seen that through and through as well, but society also forms our beliefs for us as we age.
Mhm.
And one of some of the beliefs that people hang on to as they age when it comes to their health and fitness is, for instance, age itself. Because I'm 50 years old, I can't make as much progress as I could when I was 40. Or because I'm 40 years old, I can't make as much progress as I could when I was 30. Or I can't lose weight because I'm a certain age. And I've heard 30-year-olds say that, I've heard 40-year-olds, and I've heard 50-year-olds say that. That's one example, which is not true, by the way. None of that is true. You can be 30, 40, 50, 70 and lose weight. You can be any of those things and lose weight. The metabolism is another kind of, it's a random example, but there's a belief that your metabolism slows down as you age, which is to an extent true. Of course, it is partly true, but it mostly only happens after the age of about 60. The major factor is not the age number itself. The major factor is what you're doing. The major factor is
Lifestyle.
it's the fact that the average person sits 8 to 10 hours a day. It's the fact that the average person eats mostly out of a box or out of a bag. Those are the things that cause your metabolism to slow down or cause you to store more fat because of what comes out of a box, and what comes out of a bag is much different than what comes out of the ground. So
Dang.
those are just a couple of basic examples when it comes to like some beliefs that people hang on to that keep them from making progress. And and like I said, whenever you pay attention to what people around you are saying, especially in your age group, about what's keeping them from making progress, those are the things that you need to be questioning. When you're with your group of friends and they're all talking about why they got this lump around their waist, or why they can't, they tried to lose weight and this diet didn't work out, and they're like throwing those excuses out, those are the beliefs that are seeping into you. They're seeping into you.
Okay,
But
so
unless you pay attention, go ahead.
I was just
Unless you pay attention, you can't do anything about it.
so look, if we have, so I think of life as a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if you have a belief, I can't lose weight, but you start taking action and get active, you will self-sabotage because you have a belief, I can't lose weight. That's insanity.
And eventually that belief becomes, I'm the kind of person that's not supposed to work out, or I'm the kind of person that's not meant to lose weight, or I'm the kind of person that XYZ. Eventually that becomes your identity. And that's when it gets really dangerous. If you just do it once and you mess yourself up, fine. But I think the average person starts and quits a diet maybe 3 to 5 times in their lifetime or something to that effect.
Oh, it's probably
That is when you
more.
build, it's probably more than that.
Yeah.
But even if it's say 5 times, the you build an identity around that. You start to become the kind of person who can't follow through with a diet. You start to become the kind of person who can't lose weight. You start to become the kind of person who's not meant to be in shape anymore. And then you just become complacent around things. And then you just start to get comfortable with things, which is the worst place that you could be is comfort. Is the worst place you could be is comfort. So those beliefs, it's a slippery slope, most definitely, but becoming aware of them and taking the time to figure it out is worth the journey,
Yeah.
but it's a hard journey.
Something that comes to mind on that note, look, I fell into that trap. Monotony, same shit, different day, living for the weekend. And that was kind of my wake-up call that I was cheering on Friday, dreading Monday, week in and week out. And I was like, there's got to be more to life. I know you're a fan of David Goggins, and here's what I love about Goggins. He talks about the like that most people are living at 40% of their potential. I think that's what he says, right?
Yes.
And I know this to be true because I have a form on my website called a life assessment, and it's just questions to ask people to help them create clarity and forward focus. But on this life assessment, ranking things from 1 to 10, their happiness, satisfaction, and their health, finances, relationships, career, work, hobbies, most people rank those things on the lower end of the scale, threes, fours, maybe even fives. So think about that. People, here's what I want to ask. If they know they could be doing better or they know what they need to do, why are they staying stuck?
Mm. Because are you motivated by growth or are you motivated by safety? Meaning, do you choose to step forward or do you choose to step back? And what kind of dictates that are your beliefs, which is what we talked about a little bit. But just to unpack growth and safety for a second,
Yeah.
being motivated by safety means being motivated by what is known, means being motivated by comfort, means It means asking questions like, well, what if I do this and it doesn't work out? Well, what if I try this and it doesn't work out? Being motivated by growth is being motivated by the unknown and being okay with discomfort and asking questions like, or thinking in terms of, even if this happens, I'll be able to figure it out. Even if that happens, then I'll be able to figure it out. So what keeps many people from following through and actually applying something is that they're motivated by safety.
Mm.
And a big reason we're motivated by safety is actually an evolutionary reason. Human beings have this thing called negativity bias, in which we look for negative things around us. And we're constantly searching. And whenever we're searching for negative things, we're going to find them because there's plenty of negativity out there. So when you start a new journey, you're going to search for all the things that are going to go wrong. And you either have a choice to fight, flight, or freeze whenever you find something that is going to go wrong. So what you choose to do in that moment will decide whether you're going to step forward or step back. And unless you create space between the thought that you have and the next action, then there's a good chance you're going to step backwards. Because evolutionary speaking, our ancestors had to fight for their lives. They had to do it. And our brains still want to fight for our life. So from an evolutionary standpoint, our ancestors were constantly fighting for their physical safety, for their physical safety. They had to look for food, they had to look for shelter, and they had to run from lions and tigers and bears. They had to do all of those things. Well, we have all those things covered now. We have all those things covered, but our minds are still looking for problems and still searching for safety. So when we find problems, we will seek safety. We will seek what is known. We will seek what is comfortable. And that's whether or not you recognize that that's happening and you get comfortable with leaning into what is uncomfortable and unknown, then you'll always, again, be in that same cycle of trying something and stepping back and trying something and stepping back. If you recognize that it's not an existential threat, your life is not on the line because you're going to try and lose 20 pounds and you don't know all the things you're going to have to do to get there. Unless you understand that, and your mind, your evolutionary mind is just trying to pull you back to safety, then the cycle will just continue itself. And that self-sabotage will just continue itself.
So how have you been able to break free and or teach that to others so that they can break the cycle?
Breaking the cycle is a tricky one. One of the first things to start with is space. When you give yourself space to recognize the thought before the action, then you can start to actually do something about it. Because what we do is react instead of respond.
Mm.
So when we have a thought or when we have a feeling like something's not going to work out, you start some new venture, you start a new journey, you start to feel like things aren't going well, and you start to react by sabotaging yourself by not putting in as much effort or by skipping workouts or by eating junky meals. If you pay attention to the feeling, if you feel the feeling, well, I feel like this isn't working out. Well, I guess it's not just not meant to work out. And you stop for a second and give yourself space and recognize that it's happening. And then ask the next two questions. Is it true that this isn't working out? And then you can look back at your progress and see if it's true. Well, no, I've actually made progress in this area, in this area, in this area. Well, it turns out I'm actually further along than I thought I was. And then the next question, which is, does it serve me? Does this feeling serve me? This feeling of, I don't think that this is going to work out. Does it actually serve the end goal that I'm after? And if the answer is no, then I hate to say it, but then the feeling is not worth diving into, because the reason that people get where they're trying to go, achievers achieve the things that they're able to achieve is because they're able to overcome those automatic negative thoughts and feelings that come up, because they go through this cycle and they stop and they look at it and they go, well, that's not true, because I actually have this whole list of wins that I've built up over time that show that I'm capable of actually achieving what I can achieve. So if you give yourself space between stimulus and response, your thought, and then the next action, that space can be enough to help you be able to continue to move forward instead of sabotage yourself and move back.
I love how you taught and explained that because I mean, obviously, it's a lot of self awareness and building that mindset muscle. But it took me back to 2017 when I wanted to quit corporate. And for me, I literally pen to paper had to sit down and come up with like a cost benefit analysis.
Hmm.
I hated where I was going through the motions. Clearly, there's a fear of the unknown, quitting my job. What am I doing? But how I talked myself into it. So I think this is kind of like that self soothing. I talked myself into it because I was like, I have nothing to lose. I want to quit, go explore. And my worst case scenario, this is how I ultimately took the leap of faith. The worst case scenario was I'd have to get another job. And I was like, is that so bad? It wasn't. And I'm now what, the 7 years later, and I haven't gotten another job. So, I hear that often from people. Self-doubt and fear of failure keeps people playing small. And I guess I just have a different perception of this is your one life to live. Like go big or go home.
Yeah, and I imagine you've built that perception over time. I imagine maybe when you were in the beginning of your, and this is a guess, I pure guess, but maybe in the beginning of your corporate journey, you thought differently or you felt differently, and you're like, oh, is this all there is? Is this all I really have to look forward to? So on and so forth. That's what a lot of people think whenever they're going through corporate life or whatever. You go to the beginning of that and you're like, oh, is this really all there is?
Yeah.
So the key comes down to making the unconscious conscious.
Yeah.
And you have to start to think of it in layers,
Yeah.
because it's not like all of a sudden you're going to pop the top off and you're like, oh, I see the world completely different now. It's like you take one layer off and you go, oh, wow, things look a little different whenever you take that first layer off. Maybe I don't actually have to live this life. Maybe I don't actually have to keep this job. And then you pull the next layer off and you're like, okay, well, what other options do I have? How scary is it actually to quit this job and go be an entrepreneur? So consciousness, going into a level of consciousness, isn't just a matter of like snapping your fingers and bam, it's done. It's a matter of recognizing that you tier yourself into levels of consciousness by constantly asking yourself questions. Why am I doing this? What's going on? And giving yourself space to think about it.
Well, here's what I'd love to ask you since you're in this space and clearly been an entrepreneur for a prolonged period. What are some of your daily rituals? You're human. I'm sure you still have self doubt. I imagine you come against obstacles and challenges in life. So, what are you doing to stay resilient and forward focused?
So I'll go back to my life last year to explain that answer, because I think this fits in perfectly. So last year, over the course of a 6 month period of time, I got divorced and closed a business. I was married for 10 years and was in business for 10 years.
Oh,
Both of them were a decade long. So as you can imagine, over the course of that period of time, there was plenty of self-doubt and there was plenty of questioning and there was plenty of wondering what was going to happen next and being concerned about this, that, and the other thing. There was all kinds of that going on. And the thing that kept me sane and got me back on track sooner rather than later was focusing on what I could control.
mm,
What I can control is what I do, say, think, and feel. Primarily, and especially the thing that I focused on was my daily process of what I do every day, was the things that I do on a daily basis, no matter what, either to make myself better, to move myself in the direction that I'm going, to improve my fitness, or whatever it is. For me, because I've been in health and fitness for so long, that's what I really did. I actually almost tripled the physical activity that I that I was doing. I would work out in the weight room at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd go for a short 1 mile walk in the afternoon, and then I'd go for like a 3 to 5 mile hike in the evening. And I would do that just about every day because I could control it. I could control it. And I knew that's what I could do. I knew that I could follow through with that. And it was about rebuilding my belief in myself through that follow through.
What? Oh, sorry, keep going.
Well, and it was not only that, but when it comes to work and relationships for that matter, when it comes to work and relationships, there was obviously so much that was unknown. Again, human beings don't like unknown. That's why we're scared of it and we freak out about it. So going through a divorce and closing a business, lots of unknowns going on, lots of things tossed up in the air, lots of things not in my control at all. So when it comes to those things, I had to again find the things that I could focus on, the things that I knew that I could do every day to focus on. One of them, I had the podcast, for instance. So I knew that I could focus on the podcast in some way, shape, or form. I knew that I could focus on doing what was necessary to make sure that the business was still running smooth until we were shut down. So I focused on, again, the things I could control and tried to not over exaggerate the things I couldn't control. Because at the time, it was much more that I couldn't control than what I could. But if I focus on the things I could control and check those things off the list every day, then I built belief and self confidence back in myself, which allows me to be at the point where I am today, not fully like, hey, I'm good to go, but for the most part, in an understanding that I can gain control of my life and am confident that I can follow through with things.
What about the days that you're unmotivated or in a funk?
I love that you asked this question because motivation is the thing that kills probably, I'll say 70 to 75% of definitely health and fitness journeys. And I would probably say even entrepreneurship journeys to that effect. But motivation is a feeling. And like any other feeling, it comes and goes. Anger comes and goes. Sadness comes and goes. I'm sure any human being listened to this has just had a random feeling of sadness. You kind of go, I don't know why I feel sad right now, but I just kind of feel sad. I don't, and then all of a sudden you're happy. I'm happy all of a sudden. Motivation's the same thing. It's just a feeling. And so people let motivation and feelings dictate their actions.
Yes.
That goes back to the question. The two questions that I said in the beginning when I was talking about moving forward into safety or back into safety or forward into growth. Number one, is this true? Is it really true that I'm not motivated? Well, okay, yeah, it's true. Well, that moves me to the question number two, does it serve me?
Mm.
Does not being motivated and then taking the next action, which is not following through, serve me?
Mm.
And the answer is probably going to be no. If that answer is no, then you need to just go ahead and show up and do the work. Almost always the answer is do the work. It is the question, it is the process that gets you the thing that you want. And unless you understand that it is literally just showing up every single day, day in and day out and over again, that's what's going to get you what you want. You'll always be kind of swimming upstream and not really getting anywhere.
I want to share a real world experience because I think social media gives such a highlight reel that people think this stuff is easy.
Really.
I've been into personal development for, I mean, like decades, 25
Mm-hmm.
plus years. I am a mindset coach. I do this for a living, and I want people to know that I am human too. But for example, kind of what you were just sharing, those self-inquiry questions, I came against myself this morning, and I hadn't had this in quite some time, but I woke up and just kind of, it was weird. I had this high pressure headache. I felt hungover and I didn't even drink. Like I don't really drink, but I felt lethargic and heavy. unmotivated. And then the thoughts start going, well, maybe you can just go later. Maybe you could go tonight. You couldn't pay me to go to the gym after, like 5 o'clock. Hell no. I'm a morning gym goer. That's what I do. So I got myself to the gym. But then I'd only done the warm up and I went in the bathroom and I was like, I don't know, maybe that's enough for today. And I had that moment of opportunity that I could have grabbed my bag and left, which is what we do, right? We talk ourselves out of greatness. And something clicked, and nope, it wasn't an option. I went back out and I did multiple sets of other things. And then the follow
Mm.
through, the accomplishment, that is how you build belief and confidence and conviction by showing up. So I just want to be honest that I have off days too, but I don't know, you have to dig deep sometimes to keep going forward because otherwise one day turns into two, turns into weeks, months, and now you're another statistic.
Well, any more than one day is a new habit again. So if you're trying to form a new habit and you've gone to the gym and you've done it successfully for say 4 weeks, and then all of a sudden you skip a day and you're like, oh, no big deal. I skipped a day, which okay, kind of. But
Yeah.
then the next day, if you're trying to convince yourself that it's okay to skip again, once you do that, you're forming a new habit. And that new habit is not working out. So as soon as you skip one day, getting it back immediately as quick as possible. Here, diet is another perfect example. I'm glad you explained that. First of all, I'll tell you the same thing. There are plenty of times. More often than not, I am not motivated to go to the gym. But I'm the type of person that wakes up, reads, meditates, and then goes to the gym. I'm the type of person who does that. So I'm glad you said that. Same thing. I can feel you. Diet. Here's what most people do, a lot of people, when it comes to their diet. It'll get to be Wednesday or Thursday. They'll fall off the wagon. Something will happen. They'll go out with their friends, Thirsty Thursday, whatever. Something will happen. And they'll go, oh, I'll jump back on Monday. Well, then you've given up Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
And now you're back on Monday. And you're trying to figure out why you're not making progress when you've only been following through 60% of the time. So it's the same thing. Once you mess up, first of all, it's okay. It's give yourself grace, not give yourself grace in the sense that, oh, it's okay. I'm just going to mess up all the time. But when you mess up, because you will, you're a human being, we're all fallible. When you mess up, give yourself grace. Don't beat yourself up because that's going to make it worse. And then immediately, the very next thing that you do is back on plan. Immediately.
Yeah. Here's what I've taken from this. Like a big things that we've touched on are it's a self-awareness, it's accountability, and it's discipline. Is there anything you would add to that?
You have to start, it's worth paying attention to your belief in yourself, your belief in if you are worth the the effort,
Mm,
if you're worth the sacrifice, if you're worth what it's going to take to actually make this happen. And that's a hard thing to dig into. It's super hard to ask yourself if you're worth it.
yeah.
But you have to start looking at what you believe about yourself, what you believe about you, and if you're trying to fulfill your beliefs about you or if you're trying to fulfill everyone else's beliefs about you.
Mm,
Because if you're busy fulfilling everyone else's beliefs and making them happy, it's very unlikely you're going to make yourself happy. It's not cool in our society today to talk about yourself and to be quote unquote selfish and take care of yourself and so on and so forth and think highly of yourself. But if you don't think highly of yourself, no one else is going to. And if you're busy trying to make everyone else happy, you're not going to be happy. So you have to start looking inward and deciding who is it that I'm trying to make happy and start to make the shift.
There's something I do when I'm needing that. So I do my best to be intrinsically motivated, which I am by like I have a purpose, I have a mission, I have a vision. But even sometimes that's not enough. So there
Yeah.
is a channel on YouTube called Motiversity, and it's got people like Eric Thomas and Les Brown and some
Mm.
of those real toxic masculine men yelling at you, building belief, you can do it, you are capable. And there are times when I have to tap into Motiversity to remind myself I am powerful, I am capable, I can do this. I remember training for my first marathon. Those were my mantras and affirmations on my training runs. And I literally just put them into my brain. I am a finisher. That was a big one. I am strong, I am capable, I am a finisher. And for 5 months, 20 weeks of training, so it was who I became in that journey. Because when I got to actual race day, it was pretty easy. Now, to
Mhm.
say 26.2 is easy, I'm telling you, it's because I put in 5 months of training and mental discipline and quote failure. So I would love to hear from you. How have you created the belief? What keeps you intrinsically motivated to keep showing up every day?
Well, again, I'll start by saying that I'm not motivated every day, and that every human being, no matter who you are, will definitely need some level of external motivation at some point, some level of it at some point. And that's honestly, to be totally honest, why so many people, why coaches are so effective. That is a big reason why coaches are so effective, and why I believe that a coach is one of the most effective strategies for almost anything that you want to accomplish in life, because they will be there not only to hold you accountable, not only to teach you things, but also to motivate you whenever you need it.
Yep.
So, and that's why I have two coaches, actually, a business coach and a personal coach. So I'll start with that. I'm also not motivated all the time, and I need external motivation. However, there's the other side of it where most of it has to be intrinsically motivated. And a lot of it starts with why.
Mm.
Why are you trying to do what it is you're trying to do? So, your marathon, why did you want to run the marathon?
I'll give you long story short. I've loved running since I was a young girl. I love that runner's high. And I had run a half marathon, I think it was like 7 years before, but I had created a lot of fear because number one, ignorance is not bliss. But I didn't really train for a half marathon. I didn't research a lot. I didn't know a lot. I sort of trained, not really. The longest distance I had run was 8 miles the Monday before the race. And whatever, I finished and it was good time, but I had a lot of physical pain afterwards
Mhm.
for weeks and weeks. So I created a lot of fear. And here's what happened. I think it was 7 years later. I'd have to look at the dates. But I was living in San Diego at the time, had a personal trainer. And I remember I had a belief. So now we get into beliefs. I had a belief I couldn't jump. And I was determined. I was like, I want to be able to get on the highest level of that box jump. I want to be able to jump, create belief. And whatever, it was my last week with him, got in front of the box jump. I ended up clearing it with inches to spare. And I
Nice.
I can't I can't make this up. There was something that clicked and happened and ignited in that moment. So this is that taking action part of it. I was on top of the box jump, felt unstoppable.
Mhm.
And something happened that day and I was like, I'm going to run a marathon. So that was August of 2018. So I had already declared it. I'm going to run a marathon. So what was the next step? I registered. I found one in Colorado, registered, I think by December for one in May. And then I got smart this time, right? So I don't believe in failure. I'm like, I go all in and I figure things out and how to do it better. I found a training plan. I found somebody who had run the Boston Marathon multiple times. I learned about recovery and nutrition and all these things to do. And so I did it for me to overcome that fear I had built up
That's strong. So, you had a strong why,
real strong.
real strong, I would say. And you did everything necessary to make sure you ran that marathon as best you could.
Yes.
Yes. So, a lot of people will start their journey with a surface level why. When it comes to health and fitness, since that's what the example we can easily go back to. I want to start working out because I want a six pack. I want to start working out because I want to lose 20 pounds. All that's good. That's fun. But that is not going to get you deep into any journey. It's been proven over and over again. I would say an easy 80% will quit if your goals are some surface level, something to that effect. Those are all good. It's all good. Losing weight is great and necessary for so many people. But that's not what's going to get it. That's not what's going to cut it. That's not what's going to keep you going. What will keep you going is when you start asking why and you ask it enough times to really understand what's driving you forward.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we would do with our members at the gym is have them ask why 3 times. The first why is the surface level. Why you want to start working out? Well, I want to start losing weight. Okay. Why do you want to start losing weight? Well, I want to start losing weight because I want to be able to fit in my clothes better. Why do you want to fit in your clothes better? Well, I want to fit in my clothes better because I haven't felt confident about myself in a long time. And I want to start feeling confident about myself because I feel like it's affecting my life. Bam. That's a little more of a driver than I want to lose 20 pounds.
Yeah.
So when you start to dig deeper inside of that why and let that be the thing that pulls you forward instead of feeling like you have to be pushed forward, then you actually have a chance to keep going. Because when you think about why you're doing this, well, do I really need to lose 20 pounds? You can convince yourself out of it really quick. But if you're like, man, I already feel more confident about myself. I already feel like I'm fitting in my clothes a little better. People are already interacting with me different. And you start to see those things change, that drives you forward. So that why, and your marathon story is a perfect example of that, is a big, big thing to get a sustainable journey going.
I've even heard it as like 7 layers deep, but something an
Wow.
exercise I teach my coaching clients, it's a map it out, massive action plan. What is your what, that goal, money, health, whatever. But I actually have them go 10 layers deep.
Wow.
Why do you want the thing? So for me, mine was not only to break through the fear. Yes, it was like health and fitness benefits. It was to prove that I could. It was to challenge myself. It was whatever I go 10 layers deep. And that might be a lot to some. I love the 3, but the point is, you're right. If it's surface level, we'll talk ourselves out of it. But if you have that strong, for example, somebody with health, it might be because they want to be around a long time to be part of their children's life. So your
100%.
child might be your motivator.
Or if you're a grandparent, it's getting up and down off the floor with the grandkids, being able to play with them. Heard that one a lot. So, like I said, having that, here was the truth. When it comes to health and fitness, people who are older will stick with it longer. People who are younger will not stick with it as long. And the simple fact is because the people who are older know that their why is more important.
Mm.
They're closer to the end, if you will. So they know I'm going to put my pedal to the metal and stick it out as long as I can. And I'm going to live the best life. I'm going to be in as good a shape as I can for the rest of my life. People who are younger are like, what you talking about? I'm 25, 30 years old. I'm fine. I'm good to go. I don't need to do any of that. So again, you go back to why. When you dig deep, 10 layers, that's impressive, girl. When you dig deep, that's when you have something. That's when you find sustainability.
Here's what I want to ask you because I feel like we just got started, but for time's sake, what do you believe is a key takeaway you want listeners to get that we covered today?
The It's easy to say something like, the confidence thing is the thing that I've been focusing on a lot. And I think that so many people lack the confidence.
Mm.
So the question is, what's the like the actionable thing that we can really focus on? If you can shift your mindset from focusing on just the outcome, focusing on the losing 20 pounds, focusing on the growing the business 20%, focusing on just that, and recognize that it's the process, it's the monotony, it's the mundanity that gets you there.
Yeah.
That if you just start to shift your mindset about that, that can go a long way, not only in building your confidence, but in building a life that you want and making life happen for you instead of letting it happen to you, and doing all these things that we've talked about. It is the mundanity that actually moves you. It is the process that moves you to the outcome.
Yeah.
So focus on the process, change the things that you need to change there.
Yeah.
And that's when those outcomes will start to show up.
You're 100% right. It's those daily disciplines. And I know that from personal experience, my energy, my focus, my showing up is a direct reflection of, the clients that I have or the opportunities that come my way. It's all an inside job. Something that came to
100%.
mind, I just want to share real quick, as a mindset shift around building confidence. I think it's so easy because our mind tends to fall to the negative. It's so easy to be like, ugh, I can't do that. I can't afford that. I can't, whatever. And I love this question, this reframe. How can I do it? How can I start a business? How can I start a podcast? How can I afford the thing? And that shift starts looking for opportunities instead of focusing on obstacles.
100%. I think Tom Bilyeu would say, no BS, what would it take?
Mm.
And instead of, oh, what are all the problems that are going to come up, pop up on the way? And what, how am I not going to be able to overcome them? Well, no BS, what would it actually take to make this happen?
Yeah, I love that. All right, I have a
That's
few
beautiful.
rapid fire questions to wrap up the interview. What is a quote or motto that you live by?
I've already said one, I'll say two. Unless you make the unconscious conscious, it'll dictate your life and you will call it fate. That's from Carl Jung, Jung. He was a psychologist back in the day. The other one is, in every moment, you have two choices, either to step forward into growth or back into safety. That's from Roy Baumeister. Roy Baumeister. Those are the two that I think of.
I love them both. What is a book you're currently reading or highly recommend?
Ooh, it depends on how deep you want to get. The one that I just finished is by Nathaniel Branden, and it is called, I've read like 4 of his books in the last month. This one was called um, The Psychology of Self-Esteem, I believe is this one. So that one was really good.
Final question. What advice would you give your younger self?
Go for it. Quit being scared and go for it.
Mm.
Because I was, short story, um, I was a really good athlete when I was young, but I was scared to be exposed. So I would hold myself back. So I would tell myself, quit being scared and go for it.
Wow. And how many of us are holding ourselves back, right? Such a
No
great
doubt.
note to end on. Jerry, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Heather. I appreciate you so much.